Recently, there have been some rumors kicking around about potential Xenosaga projects of one kind or another, and surprisingly, these are backed by some actual facts and many interesting coincidences. So, I'll tell you all of the information we have available currently and let you come to your own conclusion. First off, we have some integration into Xenoblade. The upcoming Xenoblade 2 Switch 2 version is getting some Xenosaga characters. But some people that are far more clever than me noticed something interesting. Bandai Namco have not put their stamp on this, which is a much bigger deal than it might initially seem. Nintendo and Monolith would be basically required by copyright law to have some sort of Bandai Namco copyright shown in order to use their properties under normal circumstances. Now, that could mean a few different things, apparently. It could mean that they have come to some sort of long-term agreement regarding the IP. It could also mean that Nintendo or Monolith have acquired the IP and so they don't need to have Bandai involved. If the second is the case, that could be really big news for Xenosaga fans. And this isn't the only thing that might suggest Bandai Namco is no longer in control of the IP. If you go to Bandai Namco's licensing page on their website as a list of all the products that they will license out. And not only is Xenosaga not present on that, but neither is Baten Kaitos, which could mean that Monolith has acquired the IP to both of its previous IPs in full from Bandai Namco. Now, the thing that throws a little wrench into the spokes of this particular train of thought is that there was a recent release on Steam and Switch, the Japan-only game Xenosaga Pied Piper, a game that originally released back in 2004 for mobile devices. And if you look at the list of developers, it shows Bandai Namco, and I think it shows Bandai Namco elsewhere on that page. But the publisher isn't Bandai, it's Gmode, who are known for this sort of games preservation. That doesn't necessarily negate any sort of IP buyout situation, but it does feel like a bit of an odd thing. It feels like this might have been a Bandai Namco-backed situation, and it could point to Bandai still owning the software rights for Xenosaga, which would make something like a remaster less likely because then they would have to pay for the original assets, code, and things like that. But what it doesn't stop from being a possibility is a remake, because that doesn't necessarily use old code or assets. It's rebuilt from the ground up. And what makes all of this make even less sense, though, is that on the official websites for trademarks, like Justia, Xenosaga is shown as a Bandai Namco trademark, which includes basically all possible uses of Xenosaga, including characters. So that makes the lack of a copyright inclusion on the Momo integration even more interesting. It would suggest that there must be something going on behind the scenes there, though what exactly that is, I couldn't say. I'm not a copyright law professional. If you are, let me know, because this whole thing has me just a little bit confused. That's really where we are right now. There hasn't been any official confirmation of anything. The trademarks are still technically showing up as Bandai Namco trademarks, but the IP has been lifted from their licensing websites. Fans of Xenosaga are in a bit of a limbo here, though that's really nothing new. The positives are that clearly the IP is seeing some movement. It could be that it's getting pushed to gauge interest. Obviously, there have been a few remasters and things moving around that make Xenosaga an interesting prospect, though Bandai itself has apparently said they tested market conditions to see if a Xenosaga HD collection made sense, and that they had decided against it. If you had asked me whether I think a Xenosaga HD collection makes sense, I would say hell yeah. But what makes even more sense to me is a full remake. These are clearly flawed games. I don't think anyone would argue that there are points in the Xenosaga series that could have used a bit more time in the tank. They could have made a lot more of it interactive and cut down on the cutscenes, for example. There's also a huge gap right now for sci-fi RPG fans. Mass Effect has kind of disappeared. There aren't really many ongoing sci-fi RPG series, and I find it very hard to believe that, considering the massive appeal of franchises like Star Wars, that there's no room for something like that to fit here, and Xenosaga would fit perfectly. But what do you think about all of this? Do you think that the IP has been moved? Do you want it to? Do you think Xenosaga should come back in some way? Let me know in the comments, and for more videos about RPGs of all kinds, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.